So all these cell organelles are suspended in the cytoplasm within the cell, and covering and protecting all of these cell organelles is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Now, cell membrane or plasma membrane, it was earlier also known as plasma lemma. It is a protective double layered wall, and it separates the inside of the cell, which is also known as intracellular space. Intra means inside, cellular, so intracellular space, from the outside of the cell, which is the extracellular space. Extra meaning out, out of something. Okay, so what do I mean by a double layered wall? Each cell membrane in the human cell is containing a phospholipid bilayer. Okay, when I say phospho, it is a phosphate layer, and phosphate, if you understand chemistry, well and good. If you don't, just understand that the phosphate group is a water loving group, therefore it's hydrophilic, and the lipid layer, which is fat, is a hydrophobic group, because like no fat material will willingly mix with water, oil will not mix with water, so the lipid layer is a water hating group. Yes, so this is the structure. The extracellular space is here, this is the intracellular space. This is a phospholipid, this is the phosphate group with two lipid chains, and this is one group, one layer, and this is the second layer. So both are facing with the phosphate groups outside. Now why is this the case? Because the cytoplasm contains a lot of water, and so does the extracellular space. Therefore you need something that can stay stable enough to handle the water in and out, but at the same time, to ensure that no unwanted materials travel from the extracellular space to the intracellular space, there is the lipid which forms like a barrier. And this does not mean that no movement is allowed between the extra and the intracellular space. So we will understand how the transport happens, because this layer is semi-permeable in nature. When I say selectively permeable, it means selectively it allows certain things to move in from the outside of the cell to the inside, and vice versa. So externally, the cellular membrane, that is the cell membrane, it is connected to the other cells through a network of fluid, and these networks together help to form tissues. And internally, the cell membrane will be connected to the cytoskeleton and the cytoplasm to help to form the mesh structure which helps to hold all the cell organelles together. Now to understand how materials move from inside to the cell to the outside and vice versa. So membrane proteins, that is the proteins that are formed, that are present in this entire layer. Other than the phospholipid, there are proteins that are present in the entire layer. These are of three types. As you can see, this is the cell membrane. This is where the phospholipid bilayer is there. All of this. Okay, and the cell membrane only does not have the phospholipid bilayer, but the phospholipid bilayer is the main part of the cell membrane. It also contains certain carbohydrates, and it contains some proteins. It also contains some cholesterol. Like you can see here, these cholesterol units, they are randomly attached in the spaces between the phospholipids that are present, because these cholesterols help to maintain a certain structural integrity of the wall. They give a good structure to the wall, so that is where the cholesterols come in. And as you can see, these structures that are present, these are the different membrane proteins. As you can see, they are either attached into the membrane like halfway through, or they go through and through. So the movement happens in different ways. First we come to integral proteins, that is transmembrane proteins. As the word suggests, trans. When you say trans, you mean cross. Membrane, so it crosses the membrane, correct? So when we come here, look at this, integral proteins. These are also known as alpha helix proteins. You don't need to remember that. Integral proteins, the main part is transmembrane proteins, so they will help in movement of ions and molecules across the cell membrane, and they will also help in communication between cells. Okay, now coming to the second type, peripheral proteins. Peripheral proteins means they are present on the periphery of the cell. Okay, so in these cases they will usually be either some enzymes or some hormones. Enzymes, as I explained, are certain substances which will just help to speeden up some reactions that are happening within our body, but they will not participate in the reactions themselves. And what hormones are, we will understand at a later stage when we study about the endocrine system. For now, just understand that enzymes and hormones are certain substances which give certain signals to the cell about what it needs to do. Okay, so these messages are also transported through these peripheral proteins. And the third type is the lipid anchored proteins. Lipid anchored proteins are G proteins. As you can see, these lipid anchored proteins, lipid anchored proteins will be the channels that will help to transmit signals from outside the cell to the inside. Okay, so together all these three membrane proteins, they help in transport of signals and messages and molecules and ions across the cell membrane. If anyone is confused about what ions are basically your sodium, potassium, calcium, uh, chloride. These are ions. These are basically inorganic atoms, but missing a certain number of electrons, or missing one electron, or maybe having an extra electron which gives them a certain charge. We will understand how this positive or negative charge of these atoms will help to send messages in and out of the cell in the following slides. Now coming to cell membrane transport, it can be of two types. First is passive cell membrane transport. As the word suggests, passive, therefore there is no usage of energy in this case. It just happens on its own. Now, usually in such cases, what happens without the usage of any energy? Imagine in case of gravity. If you had to throw something from a higher place to a lower place, it would take a lesser amount of energy. Yes, because you're going with gravity in that sense. Okay, you're going with the flow of things. But if you were to throw something away from the ground upwards, you would require energy because you are trying to fight gravity to throw it up. So that would require energy. Like an example of a river, if you are trying to flow, if you're trying to swim with the river, then you would be swimming at a faster speed and you would spend lesser energy. But if you are trying to swim against the flow of the river, then you would require more energy. Similarly, this aspect of um, going with the curve and against the curve is also the same principle that is applied in passive cell membrane transport. So first comes diffusion. Now what is diffusion? Basically it is free movement from high concentration to low concentration till equilibrium is achieved. Okay, there is more of a substance A. Okay, imagine that there is a substance A here. There is more of substance A here and there is less of substance A here. So to reach an equilibrium between both sides, the obvious thing is that more is here, so A should move across the cell membrane and come to this side. So diffusion is basically the process where the A molecule, some of the A molecules move to this side till the number of A molecules over here and over here become the same. Okay, so there is no usage of energy over here. This is simply called diffusion. Okay, then coming to the second aspect, which is osmosis. Now pay attention, this is slightly different. Here we were talking about molecules in diffusion. When we come to osmosis, we talk about a solvent. Now solvent that is moving across a semi-permeable membrane. If you remember, I mentioned that the cell membrane is semi-permeable or selectively permeable. That is, it only allows certain molecules to move across the membrane and not all of them. So over here it is similar to passive diffusion, as the solvent is still moving with the concentration gradient. When I mean the concentration gradient, I mean the concentration slope. So concentration slope, if you imagine, if this point is higher concentration and this point is the lower concentration, this is the slope and this is the concentration gradient. So the solvent is moving from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration, same as the diffusion. So as and when the solvent moves, this area has more solvent and this area starts having lesser solvent, and then the osmosis stops when the amount of solvent on the entire gradient is one and the same. Okay, and hence it requires no energy. So usually this solvent is water. How does this take place? See, if substance A is moving from here to here, okay, the space that is present within the cell is finite, it cannot be infinite. So to displace that, what will happen? The amount of liquid or the solvent that is present here will start moving out. Yes, so similarly the concentration of eventually A outside the cell and A inside the cell will become the same. Therefore osmosis goes hand in hand with diffusion, but diffusion is for molecules and osmosis is specifically for solvents, and usually these solvents tends to be water. Okay, then comes facilitated diffusion. Facilitated, as the word explains, is diffusion of something, like helping with the diffusion of something. So passive diffusion through something known as aquaporins. Aquaporins are water channels. So these water channels help to transport nutrients like sugars and amino acids into the cell, because when we consume food, eventually what is digested is broken down to the most basic units, that is glucose and amino acids, and only these are the units which can actually be consumed by the cell for energy production and for doing its functions. So these need to be allowed to enter the cell. So facilitated diffusion is the way through which sugars and amino acids enter the cell, and certain products of metabolism, they exit the cell. And active cell membrane transport is basically movement of materials in and out of the cell by usage of cellular energy. So here there are two types, endocytosis and exocytosis. In endocytosis, what happens is, here there is a vesicle. When we say this, there's a spelling mistake here, it means vesicle. In terms of vesicle, the cell absorbs some items from outside the cell, and the cell membrane forms this sort of structure, and eventually it separates from the cell membrane and it enters the cell. So endocytosis is basically another word for phagocytosis, that is the cell cyto eating something up, phago. Okay, so phagocytosis is endocytosis. Whereas in exocytosis, exo means out of the cell, so something being thrown out of the cell. How does this occur? The vesicle comes here, fuses to the cell membrane, opens up, and eventually the items or the materials are expelled out of the cell. Therefore, this completes our discussion of cell membrane transport. So far, recapping what we've studied about what is a cell organelle and try to understand the different type of organelles, starting with the nucleus, the ribosomes, moving to the endoplasmic reticulum, different types of endoplasmic reticulums, then how the endoplasmic reticulum give rise to vesicles, how these vesicles transport messages from the ER to the Golgi body, where they are further, the proteins are turned into more complex messages. From there, they are moved to different parts of the cell, the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, and eventually the cell membrane, which holds everything together along with the cytoplasm and the cytoskeleton. This comprehensively covers the most important aspects of the cell organelles. In the following videos, we will also talk about how messages are sent across the cell in another manner through electricity, and we will also be discussing about genetic material and some other special cell organelles that are present in certain cells too. Stay tuned for the next videos. Thank you.